epicenter of sports is the Root Dog Show. Now, here's your host, Rudy
That's not me. I don't lip sync. Not even a part of the Milli Vanilli fan club. What do you know? This is Rudy Reyes on the RootDogShow.com. I am here live on today's California, today's Canada. I'm here on LinkedIn, my own Facebook, Twitter, and an instant 12 people show up. Beautiful. Thank you so much for spending your time with me tonight. I have been loaded with 10,000 things going on. Of course, I can never handle all of them at one time, but rest assured, I had my eye not only here, but I had eyes in Indianapolis. And Chris Powell joined me momentarily. We were talking about the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. A lot of great stuff from a lot of great will be, when I say will be, because they're already there, they already had received an invite to the 2023 NFL Combine. Lots of great times, lots of great athletes, and more importantly, Chris Powell will bring the latest of what's going on there in Indianapolis. There is so much going on at the Combine. It will almost look like an NFL draft. I've been now to an NFL draft. The RootDogShow.com has been granted wonderful access to the NFL Combine there in Indianapolis. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. But more importantly, I think it's a precursor as to what we will see headed into the 2023 NFL draft happening, of course, in Kansas City, Missouri, where the Chiefs just won their third Super Bowl, second within the last 4 years, headed by a guy you should know already, and that's Patrick Mahomes. A lot of great times today out of the defense men's line group. And I say that because you see these guys, the athleticism, they have moxie. But behind all the Combine players, there's a lot of free agent action going on there. Derek Carr speaking to certain owners. We lost an owner today in the Carolina Panthers. Former owner had just passed away. So my condolences to him and his to his family, and of course those that probably knew him better than I probably could have ever. So with that being said, I think there's a lot to be said for the NFL Combine. I think there's a lot of free agent questions swirling in the air as Lamar Jackson certainly is waiting in the wings and finding out what his fate will be. Of course, the Baltimore Ravens have been, I don't want to say verbally on the fence. They've been more on than off of the fence. And I mean that because when you look at Lamar Jackson, there's been a lot of questions surrounding his ability to receive a very high and extensive contract. We knew this was coming. It was just a matter of time before it actually showed its head. I think moreover, I look at Lamar Jackson and, he did wonderful things while in Baltimore. Of course, thank you, Ricardo. Berenisa, have a nice day, sir. Thank you. Have a nice day to you as well, wherever you may be listening from. Wanted to let you know there are a couple of wonderful partners I have here on the RootDogShow.com. That's SatursDaysCount.com. It's 12 Saturdays in a month. There's 12 Saturdays within the NCAA season. And if you're not in it to win the Natty, then obviously you're not part of the greatest tagline in history. Go to SatursdaysCount.com. Go get your shirt today. Mine just came in, by the way, not here in my locale, but just arrived at the factory, hot off the press, literally and figuratively. So that shirt will be on its way. When I get it, I'll be wearing it. It won't be a collared shirt. I wish it was, but it's just a regular old standard t-shirt you're going to find hanging up in your closet. And of course, eventually I'll get one to Mr. Christopher Powell, who actually joins me here live on the Root Dog Show. Coach, how are you? I don't know if you can hear me or not, or if anybody can actually hear me. I did a test earlier. It seems everybody can hear me. Are you checking in okay? Audio's good? Okay, I guess that's a no. We're going to try him back here in just a minute. So I'll have to figure out the audio there. If anybody can hear me, let me know. I did a test earlier. It said that I was live if people could actually hear me. So, Ricardo, if you're still out there, feel free to throw a mention and I'll be able to reply accordingly. So I wanted to talk about what's going on in the free agent market. But of course, Coach, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's barely.
Okay, I'll have to turn that up then. How's that?
I'm gonna come back in. Okay.
Well, I,
Okay.
I I can actually hear you, so hopefully that's of some consequence. Everything's maxed out here, so I did a test earlier to make sure everything's kosher, and it seems to be working out. So maybe that'll do it. Maybe it won't. Is that better now? Can you hear me now? Try to sound like a commercial.
I, I
Uh,
think yeah, I can hear you now. I think I can hear
okay,
you now. Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, wonderful. Everybody else can hear me loud and clear. Thank you, Jessica, for tuning in, and thank you for that notification. I certainly appreciate that as well. Anyway, so what's going on? What is the latest going on there in Indianapolis? I know you're there, hot off the press of what's going on. So give the listeners and the viewers a little bit of insight as to what you experienced today with a lot of draftees.
So there's a lot going on today. Obviously, the morning version here at Indianapolis. We started off with the special teams, the field goal kickers, place kickers, and then we also had some in the afternoon. Well, in the late morning session, we had our cornerbacks and safeties, and then also in the afternoon, the actual portion at Lucas Oil Stadium, you had your linebackers and defensive linemen. So pretty much that's going to be essentially what happened today as far as the combine, the focus position wise.
Okay. There seems to be a lot of great talent out on the field today, as well as those that are in the podium that were there for the interviews, those that were up for the conversation. Tell me about some of the great conversations you had earlier today, and kind of give me an idea as to what their feelings were. Were they jitters? Were they shy? Did they not want to talk on camera? Were they kind of docile?
For the most part, most of the guys were very confident. There's you didn't really tell like a shyness. I know there was one which I'm gonna upload this clip, but it was the safety. I forget it was it I forget. Oh, it was from Penn State. The safety from Penn State. What was his name? I had it had it on the tip of my tongue, but a lot of scouts had him essentially like it's you know how the draft process is. Well, we have comps where I think they're not fair in a sense, but more so like for the novel, so for the novel, because a lot of people, So one comparison um was to Ryan Clark, and he was like, well, I'm my own person, essentially saying, hey, you know, I'm not essentially Ryan Clark. I am my own person, which I understand that, and that's one thing too, where I get that, but and we know how the draft process is. You're always gonna have comps just for the sake of it, just to be like, okay, he's a name brand, even though in theory, you think of that, as Ryan Clark as somewhat of a even now in his post career, he has somewhat of a name brand. But I was really impressed. It's a couple of guys, especially from the cornerback and the safety positions, who were actually team captains of their squad. So I think that's another thing too, where those are really impressive. I mean, you just look at the simple fact. I know one that really stood out was he was a cornerback from Coastal Carolina.
Okay.
You think about Coastal Carolina, where there was such a resurgence in that actual team. You think to yourself, no one really was talking about Coastal Carolina. I mean, people even knew that they had football near Myrtle Beach, you know. So
Yeah, there's always been some type of question as to whether or not Coastal Carolina has a football team, but they do, and they're actually not bad. They're not bad at all. They're not in the top, 5 or top 10, and maybe scouting hasn't been as good at high school for Coastal Carolina in recent memory. But notably, there have been some really good players to come out of Coastal Carolina, those guys that have relatively made somewhat of an impact at the next level. What other small schools were there outside of Coastal?
So a few. I knew there was someone. It was one from South Alabama, which that's someone you rarely see, like someone from South Alabama. That was like somewhat of a first for me. But for the most part, you pretty much had like the usual suspects. You had, dare I say, like Boise State is kind of, isn't the Kellen Moore Boise State that we grew accustomed to. They kind of went back into some, not mediocrity, but they kind of went now outside of kind of the scope of college football, where we really don't really focus on Boise State like like we did in the past.
Right. Then there have been a lot of great players, and you can even name some other small schools like North Dakota State, University and DSU. And so they haven't done anything in recent memory other than win their own conference, which should speak at the collegiate level. So, you know what, this is our bid. This is the reason why we belong, at least in the conversation of going to a national championship. Now, thank God for the NCAA. They decided to flip the script, actually change that dynamic. And the playoff system is going to change as well. Teams are going to the Big Ten, going to make it big, whatever you want to call it, Big 24 or whatever the number. It's really obscene when you think about the amount of schools that are going to change the landscape, because they're shifting, because they're moving out of their was Pac-10 back in the day, then it went to Pac-12. Now they're lucky if it's going to be a six-pack in Southern California, at least with UCLA, USC count. So a lot of great stuff going on there. I know there was some notable speedsters today out of the linebacker group, and these guys, Nolan Smith out of Georgia. Clearly, we know what's going on with Jalen Carter. That's like a non-story right now until the facts present themselves, whether or not he was at the scene. But Nolan Smith just nailed it in a 40 of 4.39. I mean, he just was blowing smoke from the line, from the get-go. I like the way he got off the line. It was fast. It was quick. His head was down for a little bit, but then it got high. And as soon as he was trucking down to get to that 40 spot, man, he just nailed it. I can't say out of these group of linebackers that there's been such a great amount of them in the 4.3, 4.40 type of range, but there's been quite a few. Who impressed you the most in that?
I mean, yeah, because you think about it, because usually with that position, you don't really get that much speed. And it's one of those where we know in that position, if you're fast like that, that means you can get to the quarterback. As far as if you have some gap in your penetration, that's scary. That's one of those where you look at like, whoa, if you see him and he got an open lane, you're toast.
It's over. It's over. It's over. It's over at that point. And excuse me, there's a guy who's compared to Aaron Donald to come out of Pitt, who certainly made his presence known. Similar body style, similar body types. I'm not going to suggest that he's the next coming of Aaron Donald, but you can have that. You can have that conversation as well. He comes out of Pitt, collegiate Kansas, as a guy who did a 4.67. Aaron Donald was 0.01 seconds shy of matching his speed. Of course, he's fast, he's quick, he's very athletic at 6'3 1/4 with 285 frame. This guy's a beast. This guy's a beast. What really impressed you about him? Was it more about the comparables to Aaron Donald, or was it his 40 time?
I think probably a combination of both. Like, especially with that 40 time, we know how, like, with defensive tackles, defensive ends, hey, this could be moderate speed. You're thinking, okay, maybe 5 and some change. And then, like you said, the size, where it's almost like we can't necessarily ignore that, because, you got to think to yourself, like Aaron Donald is from that same mold, even though obviously, like 10 years later, but in the same fact, that's something that you cannot ignore. I mean, you look at just the size of that, because a lot of people, and that's another thing too, where it's just odd. Like, and this is the time where the measurables are like key, where but sometimes I think in theory we can throw those measurables away in a sense, far as from a physical standpoint, and to see how he is on the field. So I definitely think it's going to be. I definitely was impressed by his 40 time, and also just the mold, like you said, it's already been there with Aaron Donald. I think he's kind of set that trend as far as not necessarily looking at guys at their size in a sense, but hey, if he could be just as dominant as Aaron Donald, it doesn't even really matter.
No, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because once you get to the quarterback, it's over. You've already had the sack. You have the pressure. You have a near sack. You have a forced fumble on the way to the quarterback by swatting that ball down or swatting at the arms and elbow. There are many things you can do as a defender that won't cause a flag to be thrown at the next level if you're able to get to the backfield. That's all there is to it. As simple as that. More importantly, though, when you have players that try to find a way to maybe break the mold of what they're used to playing into, is like this little box. I think players get put into a box way too often in that, well, this is a system guy, and systems are great and wonderful, and we can have that conversation. Or we can say, you know what, it's good to have that guy, but at the end of the day, I want someone who can adjust on the fly, someone who can adjust and be that QB spy, be that difference maker, whether you're a DT or whether you're a linebacker or an edge rusher. Just you have that available athleticism in order to make things happen, even when the play is busted defensively, because it happens on the offense all the time, but we don't give the defense enough credit in regards to what that actually looks like. So I'm looking for more of one guy having two different types of personalities. One who understands the system at 3-4-4-3 or in a nickel or in a dime, but I'm also looking for a guy who can make the adjustments on the fly. What guys that you've spoken to, or at least have had a conversation with, where you're discussing diversities and following those lines of a guy who can play outside of the box versus those that play inside?
As far as, like, I think the one that really stood out to me was Jamie Robinson. He's a quote unquote safety out of Florida State. He's very versatile, and it's funny reading somewhat of a scouting report, and it was like an anonymous AFC scout say, hey, some people might want to put him in nickel and some might put him in safety, but don't overthink it. Just put him on the field. I think in the quote was, and I quote, you can find a place for him because he can ball. And it's funny when someone asked similar that question, and he said, look, there's 11 positions on that field. I can play one of those. So I look at that as somebody, definitely, if he's in a system where a good defensive coordinator and a good defensive back coach who will get the best out of him, I think that's the one that really stood out to me as far as someone who essentially was saying it out loud and actually saying it and kind of coinciding with somewhat the scouting reports have been saying. So I definitely think he's one that's really is going to be the one that I think that you can see, not necessarily saying that he'll be like a Pro Bowler next year or All Pro next year, but I think if he's in the right position, he's going to be some team's Swiss Army knife going forward.
Well, and that's the guy that you want. That's the one that's going to be the game wrecker, the game changer, your game winner, someone who recognizes game when he sees game on the opposite side, knowing his matchup is going to be equally as hungry, equally as passionate, and equally going to do his best job to protect the quarterback against your pass rush, against your best swim move. Everybody has them. All defensive linemen have it, edge rushers, and the such. Tomorrow's going to be even more interesting because you'll be able to see a lot more specific drills with linebackers. We're going to see a lot more swim moves. We're going to see the types of jumps, in a broad jump or a high jump. Yeah, no, look, I totally understand that, numbers don't lie. That's great. and I get it. But at the same token, numbers don't tell the whole story. You can say that, Aaron Donald was X, Y, and Z and ABC, and you can name all these athleticisms and such. However, that doesn't tell the whole story. His ability to do it on a consistent basis is what tells the story. And that's one of the reasons why he's a Super Bowl champion. But in the linebacking core, you're going to have basically the who's who of linebackers out of FBS, FCS schools, guys that are just going to kind of blow your mind. So I'm looking for that tomorrow specifically. Anybody in the linebacking group that you're keeping your eye on right now, or at least from your perspective, that's going to make a breakout session and just, I don't know, for lack of a better term, just make it look almost childlike on the field tomorrow?
It's no one necessarily in particular. I always look forward to those SEC guys because I think those are essentially the ones who are the standard. Where obviously we know out of that position is very rich in the NFL. We got guys from Alabama, you got guys from Georgia, so you always want to just look at those guys, especially like with Georgia now. They became like this almost dynastic team in college football, and you see where those guys make immediate impact right out the jump. They're like, I call them like the plug and play guys. You just look at just as history, as see in the last couple of years, heck, the last decade, where you got guys at the SEC just make such a huge impact off the rip.
Yeah, no, I'm looking for the immediate impact guys, the ones who have refined their skills at the collegiate level, willing to take it up a notch. They've had time. They really have had time between the ending of their respective season and preparing for the NFL draft. They've had plenty of time to come into this combine full and ready to rock and roll and really show these teams who are on staff ready to go. Did you see any free agent quarterbacks, by the way, just kind of hanging around there at the combines? We know Derek Carr was there earlier today, meeting with different teams as well.
No Derek Carr sighting, but I know he's in Indianapolis. And now I did not see him, but I know he's I haven't seen him in my visible eye, but I know he's around.
He's been hanging around as well. That's what I heard. Now,
yeah.
Ian Rappaport mentioned that. He's not over my shoulder, but he's a guy who's kind of tuning in right now. I want to shout out to my other wonderful partner at Trophy Case. This is a way for you to be known, to be seen. Just like these guys that are on the field right now in Indianapolis, they've forged their way into where they're at right now. Imagine if they had Trophy Case. Imagine that. You're able to be seen, but you have to be in it, have a profile to try and win it. Go download the free app today, trophycase.app. That's trophycase.app. And if you get on it, you never know who's looking, who's watching, but the ones that you need to keep your eye on are those that are going to make your phone ring, especially in the 2023 NFL draft going on in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Coach, thank you so much. Wish you the best there. There will be a lot of surprises tomorrow. I can't quite name who that's going to be yet, but I can assure you there's going to be some head turners on the field tomorrow in the linebacking core that's going to make someone's head spin. So it's going to be great. So with that being said, Chris, hey man, thanks a lot. I appreciate you coming on the show. And if you don't know Coach, you can go follow him. He's on Twitter. Go and give me your handles, Chris.
Yes. At Couch Coach Live.
That's easy enough. Everybody should figure that out. Everybody should know that one. And of course, go to therudedogshow.com where this interview is going to be placed. Of course, as Coach Chris is there. Chris Powell joins me here from Indianapolis. So thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it. Look forward to getting an update on what's going on tomorrow via social media. Follow him, but follow me as well at Rudy Reyes. Go to therudedogshow.com. And again, go to trophycase.at, one of my great partners, and SatursdaysCount.com. When there are only 12 Saturdays in NCAA season, you may as well get your shirt for the team that you root for. Go to SatursdaysCount.com. Thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Catch you tomorrow.
Thanks.